It's also President's Day. A lot of people have the day off. It's a bank holiday and it's a federal holiday. The town here in Washington, D.C. is relatively deserted. Traffic was nice coming in this morning. But this is the day that we honor our past presidents. It's the mashing together, actually, of Lincoln's birthday and Washington's birthday. But my favorite president, at least in the modern era, and arguably my favorite president, period, is Franklin Roosevelt. And so I wanted to share a little bit of Franklin Roosevelt with you, too, as, just to kick the day off, just to give us a sense of nostalgia and also, remind you the DNC vote is going to be this weekend. That's going to be real interesting. And afterwards, I'm going to try and get somebody from the DNC to come on and talk about, who we end up electing to head the DNC and what direction it's going to, be going moving forward. But Franklin Roosevelt in 1936, specifically October 31st, 1936, gave a speech in Madison Square Garden. He was running for re-election. This was the month before the election. The election was the first week in November, the first Tuesday of November. This was the last week of October, so the election was a week later. And he, of course, won in a landslide. And he starts out talking about how when Warren Harding in 1920, a Republican, ran for president. At that time, the top tax rate was 91%. There was fairly good regulation, actually, of our banks. And Warren Harding ran on the campaign slogan of more business in government, less government in business. In other words, privatize, deregulate, put it in modern language, which, of course, is or profitize and deregulate, which, of course, is the mantra of the modern Republican Party. It was of the Republican Party back in 1936 as well, or back in 1920 when Harding ran. And FDR starts out talking about how the Harding administration, followed by the Coolidge administration, followed by the Hoover administration, these 12 years of Republican rule, which brought us the great crash of 1929, what was referred to up until the 1950s as the Republican Great Depression. That view of how politics should be done was so incredibly destructive, and how Hoover actually, and not just Hoover, I mean Coolidge and Harding as well, put what in today's dollars would be billionaires in their cabinet. Andrew Mellon, I think, is the most famous, the Treasury Secretary, the second or third richest guy in America. And so this is Franklin Roosevelt, October 31, 1936, a week before the election of 36 at Madison Square Garden. Here he is.
For 12 years, our nation was afflicted with hear nothing, see nothing, do nothing government.
So he's talking about the Harding, Coolidge and Hoover administrations.
And my friends, powerful influences strive today to restore that kind of government with its doctrine that government is best, which is most indifferent to mankind.
Right, and see, that's the whole Paul Ryan thing. Government is best that's most indifferent to mankind, that governs least. He continues.
We had to struggle with the old enemies of peace, business and financial monopoly, speculation, reckless banking, class antagonism, sectionalism, war profiteering. They had begun to consider the government of the United States as a mere appendage to their own affairs. And we know now that government by organized money is just as dangerous as government by organized mob.
And now we have, a billionaire president with a billionaire cabinet. It's like we're not learning the lessons of history. We are back there again. FDR goes on to say, they hate me, and I welcome their hatred. Here it is.
Never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
And then the crowd just absolutely goes nuts. This is a long applause, but we can talk over it. And the FDR just came right out and said it over and over and over again. You know, it's like, I would say he was channeling Bernie Sanders, but I think it's the other way around. You know, it's like Bernie was channeling FDR. But this is, I mean, you know, I welcome their hatred. And the crowd is like, yes! It's interesting because FDR did his own version of setting up the villain, only instead of the villain being the press and the institutions of democracy, which is what Trump is doing, the villain were the billionaires of the era who basically were trying to steal the country from us. He continues.
I should like to have it said of my first administration that in it the forces of selfishness and of lust for power met their match. I should like to have it said, wait a minute, I should like to have it said of my second administration that in it these forces met their master.
There you go. And he's like, you know, basically, elect me next week to my second term as president, and I will take names and kick ass. And he absolutely did. This Franklin Roosevelt, you know, I think one of the finest presidents this country has ever had. He transformed the nature of the United States and of American democracy. And his spirit lives on. And you know, such an important and vital spirit. It's President's Day. I get to do this stuff on President's Day, don't I? Here is Franklin Roosevelt one more time. This time, this was right after he was elected. This is in 1933. And he gave a speech saying that we need to end politics for profit. Now, you know, keep in mind, Donald Trump last week signed legislation that Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell got through the House and the Senate, blowing up the stream protection rule that the law had prevented coal mining companies, particularly mountaintop removal coal mining companies, from dumping their waste in the rivers and streams and poisoning people downriver. And Donald Trump did away with that, so now they can pour more poison into the rivers and streams. To hell with the people downriver. And as Trump pointed out when he signed it, it'll increase the profits of the coal companies by $50 million. It's actually going to eliminate jobs because there were jobs cleaning up that coal and disposing of that, you know, coal waste appropriately. And now, you know, all they need is one guy with a dump truck. But, you know, this is what's going on. So we've got a profitized government. You got Betsy DeVos trying to profitize our schools. You got Scott Pruitt. He's going to try to profitize everything regarding the environment. You know, if they can find a labor secretary, it just goes on and on. So this is FDR speaking to that kind of mentality that ruled the United States from 1921 to 1932 and, of course, destroyed our country the last time we really tried this experiment in a big way. Here he is speaking about the end of politics for profit. Alert, he uses some big words here, and the concepts are a little more complex than you might hear out of Donald Trump's mouth. So you have to listen carefully.
Recognition of that falsity of material wealth as the standard of success goes hand in hand with the abandonment of the false belief that public office and high political position are to be valued only by the standards of pride of place and personal profit. And there must be an end to a conduct in banking and in business which too often has given to a sacred trust the likeness of callous and selfish wrongdoing.
There you go. So, you know, the sacred trust, basically our banking system, and, you know, enough of it, because the banksters brought us down, right? The banksters took us down in 1929. The banksters took us down in 2007, 2008. And the banksters are fixing to take us down again. You know, mark my words. It's just a matter of time.